Hello, everyone. My name is Tim, and I am the host of the Theologians Table. And you could just call me Tim or Timothy, whatever you want. But I received a challenge to do a devotion every week, or every weekend, rather. So I thought that I would take up that challenge. And so I have about 10 devotions that I'll be sharing one each week, not all 10 at the same time. These are devotions that I wrote a few years ago, and they're pretty short. They shouldn't take too long, but I thought that it would be a good way to start off your weekend. So let me get to the first devotion, and it's entitled God's Truth. So when it comes to living our lives, sometimes we want to do the things that we want, even though it may not be the best idea. Then sometimes people come along and tell us that what we're about to do is wrong and will be harmful. Even though we recognize it as the truth, we do what we want anyway. This happens a lot. Excuse me. This happens a lot. And between humanity and God. As a result of God giving his truth to humanity, humans have devised what it thinks are clever ways to get around his truth. Humanity has even come up with ways to get around the existence of God to claim he doesn't exist. And those are things like scientific naturalism. Yet God's truth always gets revealed and fulfilled. We see an example of this in 2 Chronicles 18 with the story of King Ahab of Israel and King Jehoshaphat of Judah, who are preparing for war against another kingdom. So if you don't know, Israel at that time was divided up into two kingdoms, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Judah was in the southern kingdom, and the northern kingdom of Israel at this time was ruled by King Ahab. So at King Jehoshaphat's request, King Ahab agreed to consult God to see if he would be with them in the battle. We find this in 2 Chronicles 18, verse 4. At least 400 court attendants prophesied to Ahab that victory would be with them, but they were not true prophets, and Jehoshaphat recognized this. Again, at the urging of Jehoshaphat, Ahab called a true prophet to the court named Micaiah, who predicted disaster for Ahab and Israel if they went out into battle. Nevertheless, Ahab rejected the prophet's words, threw the prophet in jail, and devised a plan with Jehoshaphat that they would disguise themselves in battle as a way to get around the prophecy from God. The disguises didn't work. I believe Ahab disguised himself, but he told Jehoshaphat just to wear what he was wearing. And the soldiers went after Jehoshaphat, but then he recognized that that wasn't the king, that they needed to look for Ahab. But Ahab was in disguise, and randomly an arrow fired off from an enemy soldier found him on the battlefield and struck him. And they didn't even know that they had shot the king. So I said the disguises did not work. Jehoshaphat repented to God in the middle of battle, and God saved him. But Ahab, who thought he could skirt God's words through human cleverness, met his ill fate because of God's truth in the form of a stray arrow found Ahab on the battlefield, where he later died. So the question for us then, as followers of Christ, are, do we want to put God's truth aside so that we can possibly get our own desires? Or do we want to listen to God's truth and remain faithful to Him so that we are sustained? It could mean the difference between a full life or a metaphorical arrow finding you on the battlefield. So that's the devotion I have today. God's truth will always be revealed and fulfilled. And you would want to stay faithful to God's truth, because in your faithfulness, you find freedom, you find peace. And that's all I have for today. I hope you liked it. And I will be back next Saturday, hopefully at 10. If I don't see you, have a good week and in a good rest of the week. God bless.